Will Jamal Murray be the same after his injury? Let's get into this. Quickly before we get the video started, if you guys enjoyed this video and want to see more NBA content just like this one, hit that subscribe button and that post notification bell. Anyways, back to the video. Jamal Murray was drafted number 7 overall in the 2016 NBA draft to the Denver Nuggets. And when Jamal Murray was originally drafted, a lot of people saw this guy as a pretty good talent in terms of a great shooter and maybe had the capability of extending and adding different things to his game to become more of an offensive player overall, or more of a skilled offensive player. But I don't necessarily think people expected and could have imagined that Jamal Murray would have become the player that he has become over the past few seasons before he had his injury. But when Jamal Murray originally got drafted to the Denver Nuggets, in his rookie season, he didn't come out of the gates running and just became the player that he is today. He did start out a little bit slower, where he only averaged 10 points per game in his rookie season, but then ever since then, each and every season, he continuously improved. And I mentioned this in a lot of my videos, but when you start to see a player continuously improve from season to season and get better in one aspect, then get better in another aspect the next season, and continuously get better in terms of the points per game, maybe in terms of their efficiency numbers, maybe in terms of their passing and playmaking, maybe in terms of their defense, but they're always getting better in some aspects of their game, or maybe multiple aspects of their game per season, that truly shows you that that player is a very hard worker. And the way to get better in the NBA is not during the season. During the season, you can get experience, you can get certain things that help you out overall, but really when you see a player break out a season, it's because they really worked hard during the off season. The off season is truly the time where you could just work by yourself and truly work on every skill that you want to. And really the biggest thing is just have the time to continuously work by yourself and not having to play games where you can lose confidence, gain confidence, whatever. But during the off season, you really have the time to yourself to truly work with you and your trainer, or maybe just in an empty gym and just work on your game overall. And that's definitely something that Jamal Murray has been doing each and every offseason. The way that Jamal Murray was headed was definitely in the right direction. He was definitely headed in, at the very least, an all-star level player to really give a second star next to Jokic to really get him some help. And maybe he was even playing so well in that bubble performance specifically against the Los Angeles Clippers that would lead you to believe that he might even be going in the direction of a real superstar going forward in the NBA to really pair next to Nikola Jokic, and now you have a real super team almost in Denver with 2 superstars in Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. Now obviously there were some flaws with Jamal Murray's game. Specifically, the biggest issue when you think of Jamal Murray is his consistency. One game he can completely go off and be amazing, and the next game he can completely be terrible. That's something obviously he has to get the kinks out and really work on, but overall Jamal Murray was definitely headed in the right direction as a whole. But now let's take apart Jamal Murray's game to really describe why I think this guy was so good and really was headed in the direction of, at the very least, an all-star level player. So starting with Jamal Murray's 3-point shooting ability, as I mentioned before in the video, coming out of college, Jamal Murray was always known as a great shooter, and coming into the NBA, that was no different. Jamal Murray was having consistent seasons where he was shooting over 40% from 3-point range, which is very, very good. Jamal Murray was always known as a great catch and shoot 3-point shooter. You could definitely see in his stroke is a very clean stroke that he can get off pretty quickly. Pause. For those catch and shoot 3-point shots. But over the years, Jamal Murray really worked on and really perfected his ball handling ability as well to really create some space and create his own shot from that 3-point range. Now Jamal Murray can do a little bit of a crossover, get the defender off balance and really pull it from 3 in that sense. Or maybe in the new NBA, a lot of people or a lot of different players are using the side steps and the step backs, and Jamal Murray is definitely one of those players that use that pretty effectively. So he definitely added that to his game as well. And also one of the biggest things that he does is really runs the pick and roll with Nikola Jokic, and he can easily come off that screen, and even if he doesn't have a lot of space, he can easily pull up from that 3-point shot off that screen from Jokic and drain those threes pretty consistently. So of course, Jamal Murray is very effective from that 3-point range, but I think that's something we all have known. But now talking about Jamal's mid-range shooting ability, it's definitely very similar to his 3-point shooting ability. Of course, Jamal Murray can catch and shoot from that mid-range area. He can do side steps and step backs, of course, but one of the most effective moves, in my opinion, that Jamal uses is that pull-up mid-range shot. Jamal, in my opinion, is pretty sneaky athletic. We've definitely seen Jamal have some crazy athletic plays when driving all the way to the basket in terms of getting some posterizing dunks, which definitely helps him out in terms of this pull-up mid-range shot. But also Jamal has very long arms, which also makes that shot so effective. And in general, that pull-up mid-range shot just puts the defender off balance and really gives the offensive player some room and some time to get an open shot from that mid-range area, making it so effective. But the natural traits that Jamal has in terms of his athleticism and long arms really makes that shot just that much more effective. In terms of the post turnaround fadeaway, that's not something you typically see from a player at Jamal Murray's size, but Jamal definitely does use it from time to time, and when he does use it, he's pretty pretty effective at it. Of course, because he has pretty good footwork, but also the same thing as his pull-up mid-range shot, in the sense that he has long arms and is pretty sneaky athletic to get that open shot. So Jamal's mid-range shooting ability is definitely pretty refined, as well as his three-point shooting ability is. So now let's talk about something that Jamal Murray has really worked on ever since he got into the NBA and didn't necessarily have when he came into the NBA, which is his driving and finishing ability. Jamal Murray definitely has a floater within his game, which in my opinion is so important and something that I think every point guard in the NBA should be having. And Jamal Murray definitely does have that. But in the sense of getting all the way to the basket, Jamal is very effective as well. As I mentioned before in the video, Jamal is definitely sneaky athletic and can get some posterizing dunks, but where Jamal really does his bread and butter is just his layup packages and just finishing around the rim in that sense. We've seen it especially in the NBA bubble, where he has some crazy layups where he really hangs in the air for a significant amount of time, outlasting the defender and just putting up some layups in that way, as well as some crazy up and under layups. He can finish with either hand. And overall, when Jamal Murray gets to the basket and with a full head of steam, he's very difficult to stop just due to his layup packages. And in terms of Jamal's passing and playmaking ability, this is definitely something that he does need to work on. At that point guard position, he's more so known as a combo guard, I guess you would say, as a point guard shooting guard, and he's definitely known as more of a scoring guard rather than a facilitating guard, which is fine. In the new NBA, it seems like every point guard you have should be able to score and really has to be able to score to really be a true all-star at the very least. But with that being said, I would like to see Jamal Murray work on his passing and playmaking ability just a little bit. He's definitely gotten better ever since he's gotten into the NBA, but he's not necessarily known as a guy that's a good passer or even a great passer. So if Jamal Murray could eventually get to the point where he's known as a good passer or maybe even a little bit better than that, I would definitely be satisfied. And on the defensive side of the ball, Jamal Murray is definitely not known as an amazing defender or a lockdown defender, but he's definitely known as a decent defender on the defensive side of the ball. And when you take that into account, what he could do on the offensive side of the ball, that's very, very good for where he's at. But now fast forwarding to where we at currently with Jamal Murray, he's currently coming off an ACL injury that he suffered during last season. And now the question of the video is, can Jamal Murray actually come back from this ACL injury the same that he was before and continue to go on the path that he was going towards, as mentioned before in the video, in terms of getting to that all-star level at the very least and maybe even a superstar level? So due to modern medicine, ACL injuries are now not nearly as bad as they used to be. In the past, when you had an ACL injury, it would be a really big hit to your athleticism, and when you came back, you typically weren't exactly the same player that you were before. But now, basically what an ACL injury is now is you're going to be out for at least one season, but once you come back, you're basically going to be the same player in terms of your athleticism that you were previous. Now, of course, it depends on the player. Some players maybe would take a little bit more of a hit in terms of their athleticism than other players, but basically the basic rule is once you come back, you're basically going to be the same player they were before the injury. So of course, you don't necessarily know how it's going to affect Jamal Murray specifically, but if I had to guess, I would say he's probably going to be the same player that he was before in terms of his athleticism. But the good thing about Jamal Murray is, even if he did take a hit in terms of his athleticism, he's not necessarily a player that relies on it exclusively. Yeah, I mentioned before in the video, once he gets to the basket, he uses his athleticism pretty effectively when driving to the basket and really hanging in the air in terms of his layups, and sometimes even getting some posterizing dunks. But what Jamal Murray's game typically is, and what is mainly based off of it, is his shooting ability. He's more so of a three-point shooter, a mid-range shooter, and even once he gets to the basket, he uses more of his floater ability more than anything else. He definitely has some other abilities in terms of his layups and his dunks, but once he gets to the basket, his main thing is definitely his floater, and that's what he's most comfortable with. So even if Jamal Murray was to lose some athleticism, I think overall he would still be fine. And if I had to guess whether I think Jamal's going to be fine or not once he comes back from the injury, I definitely say he will be, and I think he's going to continue to go on the trajectory that he was before his injury. Maybe he'll start out a little slow right when he comes back at the beginning of the season, but over a few games, over a few months, I think he's going to be fine and really work his way back in. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you guys think Jamal Murray is going to be fine once he comes back from his injury, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, please leave a like and subscribe and hit that post notification bell. It really helps me out a lot. Until the next time, peace out, guys.